In Surah Najm, Yufiku Allah refers to the Prophet's journey as the highest horizon. What does that mean? It means it is above all the horizons that existed before. Previously, norms were established so that justice could be realized, but the new norms to be established will take into account human dignity, honor, and pride. Because it is a higher horizon, why does any union march? I'm saying they march for the realization of a right. So, the cause and claim of a march come from the same root. What is its cause and claim? In a single word, I would say, the cause of this march, the cause of the Prophet's Isra, his journey, is the cause of humanity.
Hello to everyone from the Istanbul School. Dear viewers, today's topic is the Isra Honor March. Our guest is Professor Dr. Şaban Ali Düzgün. Hello, Professor.
Hello.
We chose the title Isra Honor March. Professor, normally we know Isra as the night journey. That's how it's usually defined. Why did you call it an honor march? What does this march mean? Where are they marching to? What do you think?
So, Isra is the name of a surah in the Quran. The first verses revealed to the Prophet, we know them as the verses from Surah Alaq. There is nothing left to do around here except for God. That's how it goes. According to some narrations, there are also reports that the first verse revealed to our Prophet was actually a continuation of that verse. Because prophets received their first revelation either during a journey or by being taken on a journey. This means you will distance yourself a little from what exists, and I will give you a new message. The walk, in fact, can be interpreted as pushing aside what already exists, or as showing the distance between what is and what is to come, a kind of Isra, a journey.
What exists is left behind.
You leave behind what exists. You put some distance between yourself and it, and you take a step towards something new. We should all remember this is also how Prophet Moses received revelation. That's how it's mentioned in the narrations. Prophet Moses, while walking from Midian back to Egypt, the Egypt he had fled from after 10 years, sets out again with his family. During his journey, he saw fire. He said, "Let me go and get a piece of it so it can light our way," and that was the first revelation. Then from within that fire came the words, "O Moses, I am your Lord. You are in the valley of Tua. Take off your sandals," meaning taking off your sandals or shoes also symbolizes leaving behind your previous habits. You will leave what you have behind. I will have you step into a new world. That journey is about a new mind, a new way of thinking, a new world of action. So, the journey from Midian to Egypt is like Jesus' final walk to Golgotha. The road we call Golgotha, the path where Jesus was made to walk to be crucified. Abraham's walk into the desert. The Prophet's journey from Mecca to Medina, or the journey described in the Surah al-Isra, where God notably makes his servant travel by night. This journey from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa is actually more than just a physical walk. What is that journey? Masjid al-Haram represents Mecca. Masjid al-Aqsa represents the tradition of prophets, including all the previous Jewish prophets. In other words, it's a journey that takes a 40-year-old man out of ordinariness and adds him to the circle of prophets. This is how we can establish the logic behind those narrations that I called the first step of prophethood. The root of the word Isra means night journey. But the core meaning of the word actually refers to being elevated, to being honored. That's why I wanted to call it the March of Honor. To set out on a journey to rise and to gain honor. To break free from ordinariness. Like I said, where are you walking to? A person who walks has a purpose. When you walk to achieve a higher, greater purpose, what does that walk do for you? It honors you, it elevates you. Let's put it this way. For example, I use this when talking about unions. Union members march. Why do they march? They march for the realization of a right, for a right to be fulfilled. So, what kind of march is this? It is a march of honor. They take steps so that a right can be revealed, brought to light, and realized. It is a march of honor. So, any march that stands against anything that divides, fragments, atomizes, separates people based on gender, sect, or any kind of discrimination or marginalization you can think of, that is a march of honor. It is a march of honor. And I would say that the initiators of this march, the ones who started this march of honor, were the prophets we refer to as Isra. Therefore, every step taken plants the seeds of goodness, beauty, and honor in the soil. Every step has its own meaning. Every step, I prefer to call this the worship of the feet. Because in our tradition, there is something like this. There is no worship of the feet, but there is this. What is the worship of the mind? When asked, the answer given is that the worship of the mind is to think. Let's say, what is the worship of the eye? The worship of the eye is to aestheticize what is good and beautiful. It is to see, or to design things in such a way that people who look and perceive something aesthetic in what they see. What is the worship of the ear? It is to hear what is good and beautiful, and to compose or design things so that people can hear something beautiful, to compose, to create, and so on. Every organ has its own form of worship. What is the worship of the feet? If you ask, the worship of the feet is to plant seeds of goodness, beauty, and honor with every step you take. You plant them, whether you are aware of it or not, but it takes root and comes to fruition there, just like that. Therefore, at this point, through the story of Isra, I would like two things to be noticed. One of them is how the prophet, who was known as the son of Abdullah and an ordinary merchant until the age of 40, was lifted out of ordinariness by the first message he received in the cave of Hira, on the mountain of light, which we call Jabal al-Nur. Israel, we will glorify you and honor you. We will make you the agent, the subject of a journey. This journey is a movement from what exists towards something better. So, the first point is about the prophet himself, his elevation. The second is that this journey is one where those who follow him trace his footsteps.
In fact, he is paving a path, and he ensures that those who come after him continue along that path. We are part of this journey, and with every step, we continue by actually experiencing it. We've talked about the journey, but if we talk about the destination, teacher, the place we will reach, the place we arrive at, if we could elaborate on that a bit, what would you say? Where does this journey ultimately lead?
That's right. So, where does this journey end up? First, this cause, I'm using the example of a union for this journey because it's something everyone is familiar with. So, why does a union march? I'm talking about any union. It marches for the realization of a right. Therefore, the cause and the claim of a march come from the same root. What is its cause and claim? In a single word, I would say that the cause of this journey, the cause of the prophet's Isra, his journey, is the cause of humanity. It is the cause of humanity. It is to do or say something that concerns everyone, something that can touch everyone's life. Which words do we wish to see prevail in human life? What kind of world do we want to build? What kind of society do we want? We say, let it be compassionate, right? People are against each other.
Peaceful, full of love.
Let it be peaceful. Let it be full of love. Now, these are the words that build society. Later on, both Greek philosophy and our own thinkers like Al-Kindi and Al-Farabi say that this is the main reason for the creation of the universe. What is the main reason, the main essence behind the creation of the universe? They say it is love and compassion. So, think of compassion and love as something that brings people together, that creates and sustains them, like a glue or mortar that holds society together and keeps it united. So, what does that mean? Let's say you ask Al-Mawardi, we're going to establish a state, my friend. Mawardi states in his Sultan's Akamai Sultanai, the principles of administration, that there are three elements that establish the state. A state cannot be established without these three elements. There must be a financial pillar, a military pillar, and a religious pillar, because the religious pillar is what holds the other elements together. Otherwise, it would fall apart and disintegrate.
Becomes binding force.
Bravo to the binding force, binding force. So now, religion leads the Prophet on a new journey. First, it honors him. It makes him part of a great tradition. It places that heritage before him. All the lessons learned from that heritage, the lessons to be taken, the entire history of the prophets, all of that is laid out before him. There is such a past. If you look at the goal you are aiming for in light of the processes of development, we are progressing. The message you carry should be a higher message than the previous ones. That's why, he says, we are bringing him together with the highest horizon. In Surah An-Najm, the highest horizon, the Prophet's journey is to the highest horizon. What does that mean? It means it is above the horizons that existed before it. Previously, norms were established so that justice could be realized, but the new norms to be established will take into account human dignity, honor, and pride. Because it is a higher horizon. Previous societies also claimed to have morality. But the new morality to be established in society will be a higher morality that takes these criteria into account. Where does that higher limit reveal itself? What do we mean by higher? If I only consider those in my own group, that's not higher at all. That's just normal, standard behavior. I'm Kai's brother. This is my brother. I will protect him. This person is from my family, so I protect him. This is from my religion. It protects me. I protect it. This is the Jewish mentality. Whose God is God? He is our God. So who are we? We are God's beloved children. What am I describing here? These are the statements found in the Torah about Jews, and also the ones criticized in the Quran. In other words, the monopoly mentality is at work. A monopoly in religion, a monopoly over God. No universality. He can't see it. No such thing. Everyone, the whole of humanity's cause. Even today, when I talk about this, people from our own community say, what do you mean by the cause of universality? Or what do you mean by all people, teacher? That's what they say. Then they ask, what's the point of being Muslim? Even today, they have trouble understanding this. At the very beginning of the Quran, in Surah Al-Fatiha, it says, all praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. He is Lord of all worlds. Not just the Lord of one group. Not just the God of a single faith. And while finishing, the Holy Quran has perhaps been forgotten. This message is the servant of God, the Lord. It says, the Lord of all people. At the beginning, it's the Lord of the worlds. The word Alam in the Quran is used both in the sense of the cosmic universe we know and also in the sense of tribe. In Judaism, God is the deity of a single tribe, the Israelites. But saying the Lord of the worlds means there is a being so great that he cannot be limited to being just the God of one tribe, and it says you cannot do that. He is the Lord of the worlds, of all tribes, all families, all cities, whatever you want to call them, and ultimately of all people. That's why I said this universality, This journey is a cause for all humanity. It's not just the cause of Muslims. Even today, if you are producing an idea that will cross international borders, that won't require a visa, a thought that will surpass all boundaries and never encounter any visa, regardless of a person's religion, sect, race, color, or language.
Aga,
If you can produce such an idea, one that encompasses all people, it has dignity and enters circulation. This, in a sense, is cultural production. In other words, it's a process of cultivating culture. The spread of culture is not at the same pace as the spread of religion. Culture spreads much faster than religion. It spreads much, much faster, many times faster. That's why, if you produce concepts that concern the lives of all people, you can penetrate culture.
actually, when we use this speed of cultural spread in religion, meaning the common language there, the thing that causes culture to spread so quickly is the increase in common similarities among people. This,
Absolutely.
when we use this methodologically in religion, when we can use the universal common language in religion as a shared element, we might be able to make religion spread at the same speed or even faster.
Yes, but that's not so easy. Today, this is called theology of culture. Theology of culture is something I care a lot about in my main writings and works. It's very important to me. For example, when you take the word Tawhid as it is, it means the oneness of God. But when you put it into a cultural form, it becomes the unity of humanity, the shared concern for the future of humanity, and the common problems of humanity. So, let's say I want to come up with a solution in Manhattan from a religious perspective. I can bring together Christians, Jews, Hindus, all of them. We can all cooperate in the fight against drugs. In terms of protecting our children, this is a cultural act. For example, performing prayer is specific to Muslims, but protecting our children from a bad environment is a cultural reaction. It spreads easily. It's accepted everywhere. That's what I'm saying. That's why, when we talk about Tawhid, Muhammad Iqbal says, think of Tawhid like a fan. The fan has 3 wings, 3 blades. When you open these 3 blades, one says equality, another says justice, and the other says brotherhood. In other words, he says, the slogans of the French Revolution are written there. Look, equality has a counterpart all over the world. Brotherhood or solidarity also has a counterpart everywhere in the world. Freedom, look, all of these are cultural. But when you say Tawhid, the oneness of God, that's where we get stuck. This is fine. It's definitely our most foundational term, the oneness of God. But what I'm saying is, at one end of a verse where the divine is present, at the other end there is the human. At one end of a verse where there is theology, at the other end there is anthropology, and there should be, or it's called lahud. In classical culture, the divine is referred to as lahud and the human as nasit. So, when you integrate this into the culture, the power to spread, to expand, to influence, just as you described, multiplies. Why did we come to this point? From here, the Prophet's journey, his Isra, is a journey for the cause of humanity. It is a march of honor, and it involves the effort to include all people with all their claims in this honor, for the sake of preserving that dignity, that honor.
You're talking about something very precious here, but at the same time, a very difficult journey.
Actually, it seems very difficult, but dear Fatma, truly, when you talk about honor, dignity, and pride, there is no one who can say, no, I'm against that. As long as we set aside exclusionary language here and use a language that is inclusive, embracing, concerned, and tries to be considerate, if you look, you'll see that this is truly the language of the Quran, the life practice of the Prophet and his Sunnah.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor, for your valuable insights. I hope we, too, can be among those who recognize this and join this journey. Thank you. Dear viewers, today we talked about the Pride March in the context of Surah al-Isra. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.